afternoon. This is Debbie Sue, and you're listening to The Right Shoe. Yes, I am trying to. Oh gosh, I still got it on in the background. I love this part. Okay, that's enough of that. Okay, Debbie Q was originally started because when I first started this podcast, everything was so new to me. Everything was so, I don't know. I did not know what to name myself. I like names, I like drama, and what do you call it? Just surprise and whatever. And I thought, the right shoe was going to be it because of my first episode being Pipus the Wise, and they could never find his right shoe. And I did name that for Matthew Larson. And there is actually a video. It's about his life. If you Google Pipus the Wise, it'll come up. I think his partner made the movie. Somebody let me know that it was coming out that day. So to whoever that was, thank you. And I really enjoyed it. I did. I don't think it was his partner that told me. I don't even think he knows who I am. But I feel bad for his partner because I think they were going to make it big. Okay, I'm trying to do this without babbling. And there's a movie out now about Pipus the Wise by his partner, I believe, and it's really good. He was going to make it big. So anyway, when I made this, I was saying it into the microphone, and my last name begins with a P, by the way. And Debbie P with the right shoe did not rhyme. So I said Debbie Q with the right shoe. And then the other day I was thinking, my middle name is Susan. Why can't I be Debbie Sue with the right shoe? You can call me whatever the hell you want, to be honest. It doesn't matter. Just Debbie is fine. But when I say something, I have to have it rhyme. I don't know why. It feels good when I'm saying it. Hi, this is Debbie Sue with the right shoe. Welcome. You get it? You dig? So in the meantime, I want this to be a relatively quick one because I had the brilliant idea that I was going to redo these 2 bedrooms. I don't even know why I did this. I can't even, I took everything out and I am currently swamped. I will put on my Instagram, ShopaholicDeb44. It is absolute madness. I guess I am a hoarder because it's craziness what I found. So I wanted to do a quick story. Now the Jon Benet Ramsey case, as we know, is out and out. Just, when she died, when she was murdered in 1996, I had just gotten out of school, and I never thought in a billion years that she would become the iconic person that she's become. I mean, Jon Benet is the true mystery. I never, even back then, I'm telling you, when Susan Smith killed her kids, I could see it right away in her. I was like, that girl is lying. I mean, I could see it. It's not me saying that. I genuinely thought that. I am a very good reader of people. I really am. I'm not just saying this. Susan Smith, I just was like, oh my God, that girl's lying. When things happen, I really try to read people. I don't know. From the beginning, this sounds goofy because nobody agrees with me apparently. I never thought the parents had anything to do with it. I know that it is an incredibly unpopular voicing of what happened to Jon Benet. The note, yes, that ransom note is Patsy through and through, so I can't explain it. It's, I just can't explain it. It's like that Alan Greenberg case that wakes me up at night. It's a suicide to me, but how do you explain someone stabbing the back of their neck? You can't. There's things that are inexplicable. And yet I just feel this feeling inside me. I definitely know that John had nothing to do with it, the father. I mean, him without a doubt in my mind. Patsy is the one person because of that note. That note makes no sense. I completely agree with that. The people just are opinionated about it, which is fine. But you got to say, look, none of us knows what really happened. None of us knows because we don't know. I mean, there was strange DNA in her underwear. There was this guy, FBI profiler Lou Smit was in on this case. And he is also one of the ones that believed, well, I'll get to that. There's two FBI profilers that I really like. One is Lou Smit. He passed away, sadly, 2010. But I really liked him a lot. He was a good man. And I like Paul Holes. I do like him. I like how he talks. And he doesn't come off like, because some FBI profilers do come off very egotistical. It's just the truth. I'm not, I understand. Okay, you're the top dog. I see why you would be a little egotistical. But if he is, he hides it well. Where Lou Smit, he really came off as just a really good-hearted man. I mean, Paul Holes is so good-looking that it kind of it interferes with my judgment of him. But Lou Smit, I just like him. He's a good guy. Google him if you get a chance. So anyway, this story is about Heather Church. And if you're a Forensic Files junkie like myself, Heather Church is somebody you know well. But I was kind of thinking of this in reference to the Jon Benet Ramsey case, because what happened was one night, her mother's name was Diane and her father's name was Michael. Now, Michael, when he was being interviewed, did come across as very, very despondent that he was not there for his children. He seemed very despondent of the breakup of his marriage. And I really think he had a lot of guilt in himself. So it starts out, it's September 7th, 1991, and Diana has, she has, I believe she had 4 children. They lived in a small town in Colorado. In fact, they lived on 5 acres of land. So there was a lot of, there was a large area. Colorado Springs, El Paso County, Colorado. That is where Heather Church, she was born July 7th, 1978. So she was 13 at the time. She was an 8th grader at Falcon Middle School. That night, her mother had to go to a Cub Scout meeting with her other children. And Sage, age 9, Heather, age 13, did not want to go. She asked her mother if she could stay home, and Diane said her daughter was and you could see, if you wanted to ever check out the Forensic Files episode, it's called Screen Pass, and you could even see Lou Smit in there. This story always stuck in my head because she did seem ahead of her years. So she said everything was great. She went to the Cub Scout meeting. She called her at 8:30. And she said, how is everything? And she said, I was just going to put Sage to bed, but I didn't. She was giggling and everything was great. So everything was fabulous. She got home not too much longer. Maybe an hour and a half had passed. I believe it was around 10 o'clock. She gets home. She said it was weird because the door was unlocked. And she said right away she felt that something was off because Heather would not leave the door unlocked. But she went upstairs, looked into the bedroom. Heather was so tiny, she thought perhaps that she was underneath the blankets. She goes over to check, and she's not there. Now, as a mother, I cannot imagine the horror. Already, I would be in complete panic mode. She goes, and Sage is there. That was baffling. Then they started running around the house. She can't find her anywhere. She can't find her daughter. She calls the police right away, and they said, 98% of the time, the children come right home. And she said, this is the 2% of the time that it's different. She knew right away. And it was just a very traumatic for both of them. The dad still looked completely unhinged. You can tell it deeply, deeply. I mean, of course, but also I think even Lou Smit said, you go in and work your way out. So the first thing that happened is they went to the family. Now this is, I hate to keep comparing it to Jon Benet, but it just always sticks in my head. With Jon Benet, I do believe that the family was rich. I think they were a little intimidated by that and the family, so they didn't square off the scene. There was so many error. They told the dad to look for the kid. I mean, that in itself is baffling. It just wasn't, done properly. They zeroed in on the family, and some people didn't like the fact that she was like in the beauty pageants, and that note, and Lou Smit had always compared this case to the Heather Church case. I don't want to go too much into Jon Benet. I just want to say there's similarities here between the cases. Heather Church, they had to look at the family first. They asked the dad questions, which he said were just awful. And then the mother said, the lie detector test was awful. And in the meantime, they don't know where Heather Church is. The thing is, though, they both had rock solid alibis. I mean, she was at the Cub Scout meeting, and the dad, Michael, was at a parents of divorce meeting. The amount of time, the window, was just impossible for it to be them. They don't know what happened. She just vanished. 2 years go by. I mean, they're like I said, their land was 5 acres long. I mean, it became a cold case very quickly. And then a hiker was in a deep ravine. It was approximately 10 miles away from their house. He finds a skull. They call the mother and said, we found a skull somewhat in your area. And she said it really, just them finding the skull, she said, I wasn't too hopeful because it had happened so many times before. She says, in fact, if anything, it makes you very depressed knowing just how many people go missing each year. Well, lo and behold, they check the dental records, and it is Heather Dawn Church. They call the mother and they say, it's Heather. I mean, that must break you, because she said the whole time the mother kept holding on to this. Maybe their children had passed away and they wanted a child, and they took Heather, and she kept holding hope that Heather was alive somewhere. And now that hope was over. So now who did it? And so in the meantime, Lou, there was FBI profilers who pontificated in the beginning that it had to be somebody close to the family, because there was nothing amiss, that besides the unlocked door, there was no scenes of violence or chaos. So they said she must have known her attacker. That's what the FBI profiler said that he thought was possible. Very soon after, in the beginning, Diane had found the window open. It had 3 smudge marks on it. So they took that fingerprint, and the AFIS is the FBI's, the automatic fingerprint identification system stores all of the fingerprints in there, and they kept running it through, and everyone was under the assumption, Lou Smit at the time, in fact, said he was under the assumption that all fingerprints went into the AFIS system. He said, at that time, I did not realize that it was only major crime. And some people, there was actually 92 offices they found that did not put their fingerprints into the AFIS system. So, this is going over the course of 2 years, but they had those fingerprints since the beginning. Just no match. There was a guy. Now, there was a El Paso elected a new sheriff, and he was deeply concerned about this Heather Church case. So he calls in Lou Smit, and he says, what do you think we should do? How do you, and he said, well, the only thing we have is these fingerprints. There's this guy named Thomas Carney, and he was the AFIS manager who was the one who discovered that 92 offices did not have their AFIS system updated. So he writes 92 letters. He says, I need 92 stamps, and I'm going to mail to each and every one. Can you please provide your fingerprints to me so that, of anybody that's involved, that's anybody who has their fingerprints on file, even if it's not, like a murderer per se. And what do you know? They get a match. It was unbelievable. They got a match to a guy named and this is where the story just gets absolutely bizarre. Robert Charles Brown. He, which blows my mind, he lived only a few miles away, and he had been in jail for car theft. Not a big deal. He moved to Colorado in 1987. And, so the thing is these things come up after parole. He got out of jail, but he had never been in jail for anything massive. His fingerprints remained in these little small towns that did not provide, his fingerprints never made it to the AFIS system. Now it's a lot different. I asked Homicide, I said, is the AFIS system updated? He said it's pretty rare that we find out that was long ago that happened. That was like a big hole. He said that AFIS is pretty updated in every town now. There might be some still scattered, but for the most part, they're all updated. And it's all fingerprints, not just major felonies. So, and computers can handle so much more now. Back then it was a lot harder. So his name was Robert Charles Brown. He seemed like a real piece of work. I mean, first they pull him in and they said, Robert, why are your fingerprints? And, they didn't tell him why. They just had him come in, and he probably thought it was a parole violation. Who knows? He comes in and they said, why were your fingerprints at the Heather Church house? And he's arguing back and forth. Finally, they figure out that it was Robert Brown. But he had come into that house that night with the intent on burglarizing. He was on drugs, or he came in with the intent on burglary. Heather surprised him because he did not see any cars or anything in the driveway. Lights out, all that. So he walked in, and she had died from blunt force trauma. One hard blow to the head. So he must have got startled when he saw her, hit her in the head. They said the reason the fingerprints were on the window was because he had gloves on, but he couldn't get the window open. Fortunately for everyone else and the parents and the police, when he went to push the window open, he had to take off his glove for a second, and those 3 fingerprints is what saved everything. And I keep thinking, one more mention. What if there's some little thing in that Jon Benet? I don't know who killed her. I'm just saying. It sounded so similar to me. I can't get it out of my head. So this guy's a jerk. Regardless, let's put everything aside. Let's get back to Heather Church. Sweet little girl. And this guy ruined. And he was he had a wife and a child himself. I don't understand how you can do that when you have a child. How do you kill a child knowing what that does to a parent? Unless he has no soul, which he apparently doesn't. But it really broke my heart for that family. Both of them, but the dad always crushed me. It's called Screen Pass. It really is a good episode because the parents should not lose their children ever. It's a tragedy. I guess you have no choice but to get past it, but I don't know how you get past it. And they should burn this guy. I mean, he got life in prison. Then he started confessing. Then he started blabbing. And actually, there was another famous case. He started, I guess when you're in jail, you got nothing to do. He started blabbing his mouth. He said he actually confessed to the death. He had a plea agreement. Brown was arrested on March 28, 1995. For the first-degree murder of the September 17, 1991 killing of Heather Dawn Church. Although he initially pleaded not guilty, in a plea agreement, he changed his plea to guilty so the prosecutors wouldn't seek the death penalty, trying to save his own ass. They should hit him in the head with something sharp and kill him. That's eye for an eye. But, okay, so on July 27th of 2006, in a similar plea agreement, He confessed to the death of Rocchio del Pilar Sperry, age 15, who was killed on November 10th, 1987, at an apartment complex. Sperry's body has never been recovered. Unbelievable. Then he started saying he killed, up to 48 people, which who knows, now he's on a tear. But he definitely did kill Heather Church and Rocchio Sperry. I mean, that is just tragic. I believe she was also missing from Colorado Springs. Yes, Hispanic. Yeah, I thought she was Hispanic. She was driving a Graham Way Pontiac. Her husband, a soldier, was stationed at Fort Carson and was visiting family in Florida. Her husband said Rocchio called him at 4:45 a.m. to tell him she loved him and she couldn't wait to see him when he got home. He asked her if everything was okay. She said everything was fine. He was gone for 6 days. She was supposed to meet her husband at the airport, but she never showed up. He attempted to report her missing, and they theorized that she left people theorize that she either left him or he murdered her, the husband. He never believed his wife left on her own accord, and he found broken glass and blood inside their apartment. None of Rocchio's belongings were missing except the car and the TV set. So this guy was a burglar who, if a person just happened to be there, he would kill you. He searched for her himself, the husband, Joseph, and he thought she was kidnapped and forced into prostitution. He stated that his life had been miserable after Rocchio had vanished. He lost custody of his daughter and became addicted to heroin. He is now in recovery. Until Robert Brown confessed to Rocchio's death. He stated that he took Rocchio to the movies and strangled her afterward, dismembered her body and put it into a trash bin. He also stole her car, her wedding ring, and a television set. He had already been incarcerated at this time for the death of Heather Dawn Church. That is unbelievable. There's other murders, but they're the two definite positive ones, so I don't want to get into other ones so much. What a toad, I mean, not only that, but it's gotta really suck to be accused of something that you didn't do. I hope Charles, he looks terrible. Thank goodness. Jail hasn't been kind to old Charlie, which nothing makes me happier. Now, that is a shorter one. There is a Robert Brown summary. I should have done Robert Brown because it's apparent that this guy really, you know what? The reason I did Heather Church today is because it's a brief story, but I was always somewhat fascinated by it for several reasons. Because initially it was so strange that she had went just missing flat out. It was interesting how they found her. That guy, Thomas Carney, he's a real hero because without him, I don't think they ever would have found him. And the fact that Lou Smit said he held out hope. So that's really cool. Plus, I wanted to, I maybe one day I can do the Robert Brown story and get to maybe go through, because there's a lot of things that I'm reading and I would like to put them all together. I just have to get this room done. But so in the future, this was a short one. I'm going to do another one with Lyndon. They seem to be popular. Rachel Nichol. Now that is a British woman, and we decided to do a British crime next. And also I'm currently reading about Natalie Wood, and that is taking a little bit of time. That's a more of obviously complex case, only because she lived such a full, rich life. Then she had drowned on a boat, and I wanted to go through that story. I definitely am going to do the Ketty Cab murders because I was always fascinated by that story. I know it's been done ad nauseum, but I did the Zodiac, and I thought that was ad nauseum, and that's gotten more clicks on YouTube than any of the other things I posted. I am on YouTube, by the way. It's the pictures with the story in the background. If you're interested in that, please like and subscribe. If you can give me a hey hi ho on Apple Podcasts, that's where Apple kind of rules the podcasting world. So if you can give me a shout out there, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, it's Shopaholic Deb 44, and those are some of the projects I'm working on. I just had to take a short break to get through this nightmare I call reconstruction, and then I'll be back with my long rambling ways. Thank you. And this is Debbie Sue, and you're listening to The Right Show.